Shavua Tov, guys. Welcome to a new week. Welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you by Lay of the Land and hosted by me, Rolene Marks. If you are new to our community, welcome to it. You are in the company of the best people from around the world. Now, we gather here every Monday to Thursday to take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel. And a few things before we get into the headlines. Today is Tu B'Av. It is Israeli Valentine's Day, or the day or the festival of celebrating love. And I just want to take a moment to express my love and gratitude to all of you out there who are part of our Israel Brief family, whether you are watching on YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever you get it. Thank you so much for your incredible support and for your love. And I also just want to remind you guys, I'm off to Kibbutz Nir Am tomorrow. The residents are starting to return back to their kibbutz. I will try as much as I can to try and bring you the Israel Brief from the kibbutz, but I think we all can understand that this is a very sensitive situation for many of these people returning home. If they have a home to return to, this is the first time they will be back. It'll be very emotional. It'll be very sensitive. There is still a lot of anxiety, a lot of mistrust in the government, and I want to be as respectful as I possibly can. So let's take a look at those top stories. It is day 318 of Israel's war with Hamas, following the massacres and kidnappings of the 7th of October. So let's take a look at latest developments. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed in Israel last night. This is the 9th visit that the Secretary of State has paid to Israel since October the 7th. He met with President Herzog earlier this morning, and the two discussed, amongst regional threats and developments, the possibility that this is the last chance for a hostage deal. Now, Hamas is reported to have turned down or refused the deal, but the Americans and the Israelis and our negotiating partners, the Qataris and Egyptians, still seem to be optimistic. So let's take a look at some of those big points that are up for negotiation. And some of the key elements on the table include: the IDF will reduce its presence at the Philadelphia corridor, but will not withdraw completely. Now, this is very, very strategic. The IDF, of course, wants to make sure that no weapons are smuggled into the Gaza Strip from the Egypt side of the border, and of course that no more tunnels are built, something that the Egyptians have given their assurance of. The Palestinian Authority will manage the Rafah crossing with unspecified Israeli supervision. We do know that Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, is looking to make plans to visit the Gaza Strip soon. Israel will monitor displaced Palestinians returning to northern Gaza through the Netzarim corridor. A large number of Palestinian prisoners released in exchange for Israeli hostages will be deported abroad. This is very important because we already know that at least one of those who was released in the hostage exchange has already carried out a terrorist attack. Israel will retain the right to veto at least 100 names on Hamas's list of prisoners to be released. Full IDF withdrawal from Gaza will not be required, and this is contrary to Hamas's 2nd of July proposal. And discussions on a permanent truce and Gaza's reconstruction will take place in a second phase, with Israel allowed to resume military operations if Hamas rejects its conditions. Now, the resumption of military operations was something that President Biden made sure was in the deal. And I know that there are many opinions out there, but for Israelis, we want our loved ones, we want those 115 people back home now. Time is of the essence. The Secretary of State will meet a little later with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Yesterday, 2 terror attacks were carried out in Israel. The first was a terror attack that killed a civilian security officer, Gidon Peri, in his business in the town of Kedumim. Gidon was bludgeoned with a hammer, and later died as a result of his wounds, and there is a massive manhunt underway for the terrorist who perpetrated it. Gidon was married, a father of 3, just 38 years old. Our love and our prayers are with his family. May his memory be eternally blessed. And last night in the city of Tel Aviv, a man in his 50s was blown up when the bomb that he was carrying in a backpack exploded before he reached what is presumed could either have been a synagogue or a shopping mall. Now, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad have claimed responsibility for this attack, confirmed to be a terror attack. When the explosion happened, it moderately wounded a passerby who was going past on his scooter. Now, this is very, very worrying. We haven't seen suicide bombing attacks since the Second Intifada. So for those out there on campuses and in city streets around the world shouting, globalize the Intifada, this is what they are talking about: suicide bombings, murders, buses blowing up. But as you can imagine, our security forces will be on high alert, and Hamas have threatened that this will not be the last of potential suicide attacks. So we will be extra vigilant here in Israel. As I mentioned earlier, today is Tu B'Av, the festival of love, and today it gives us another moment just to pause and remember those whose love has been torn apart by terror. We think of the hostages torn apart from their families and loved ones being held in the terror dungeons of the Gaza Strip. We think of those families massacred so cruelly, taken from us, taken from their loved ones in such a cruel and evil and insidious manner. Former hostage Noah Argamani, who was freed by the Yamam in Operation Anon in June, wrote a moving letter to her boyfriend Avinatan Or, who is still held captive in the Gaza Strip. And another very, very moving show of love was the girlfriend of a hostage who set a romantic table on the promenade in Tel Aviv along the beach with his picture opposite her, waiting for him to come home. I think today's a day where we have a paradox. On the one hand, we celebrate love, being all the more reminded that we have our loved ones with us, and on the other hand, our hearts are wrenched into 115 pieces for our hostages and over 1,200 pieces for those who were murdered from so many places around the world on a day of peace, a Saturday where we were about to celebrate our love for the Torah, the 5 holy books of Moses, the 5 holy books of the Jewish people. So today, hug your loved ones a little closer and say a little extra prayer for all those affected by the atrocities of the 7th of October. And finally, because let's try to end on a positive note, former hostage Mia Shem, who was released in a hostage deal after 54 days, has posed for a bridal campaign by the designer Ricky Dalal. Now, Mia was shot in her arm on the 7th of October. In fact, you can actually see in the beautiful image of her, which is up on our Facebook page, she's wearing a glove or a bandage or something to hide her arm. Mia was taken captive. She was shot in her arm. She was operated on by a vet, and she was held captive by civilians in the Gaza Strip. Mia sat down for an interview last week with Israeli television, and she spoke about her PTSD, how nighttime is particularly scary for her, that she can still see the terrorist standing in front of her, and how the slightest little things trigger some very, very bad memories and trigger anxiety for her. And I think you will all join me in just showering Mia and all of our hostages, those still in captivity and those who, thank God, have made it home, either by being rescued or in those release deals, that they're home and that they're safe, and that we will do whatever we can to help them recover. We've seen at least one couple, both hostages, both who lost their legs, get married in recent weeks, and we see the brilliant Maya Regev, who was shot in the leg, who also was operated on without anesthetic, who had acetone and acid poured into the wound, how she's making a recovery and can finally walk with the aid of her crutches and her walking stick, and we wish her and all of them a full recovery. This is Israel's at its best. And on to the audience question of the day, and it comes from Romy from London. Romy wants to know, does humanitarian aid continue to go into the Gaza Strip? Well, Romy, the answer to that is absolutely yes. Israel said our policy is to flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid. And the problem that we are having is that we are expediting it through as quickly as possible. Hundreds of thousands of tons of food, medicine, whatever is required is going through, is entering the border at various terrestrial crossings. The problem is, why isn't the United Nations and their various agencies distributing the aid? We know that Hamas is hijacking some of the aid. We know that gangs are hijacking some of the aid. But it is incumbent on the United Nations and various agencies to ensure that that much needed aid gets to people who need it most. And I can tell you, as an Israeli, I get very, very distressed to see Palestinian children, Palestinian civilians in distress, suffering as they are. And we need to hold the UN and other humanitarian agencies responsible for this. Palestinians and Israelis are not pawns as part of your global agenda. Get the aid to the people who need it now. So I hope that answers your question, Romy. And if anybody else wants to ask a question, please pop it in the comments section below, or be in touch with us via Facebook or our website. So speaking of Facebook and our website and all of that important information, you can check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook page is at Lottel's site. Our YouTube community is right here at the Israel Brief. Remember, guys, if you like us, because we certainly love you, click on that red subscribe button, and we are on X at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks. Mwah! Much love to you all. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you again tomorrow for your Tuesday edition of the Israel Brief. God bless. Bye for now.